Okay, so good morning, guys. So today we are going to look at the calculators. A lot of you will have a calculator that looks like that. Unfortunately, that my calculator that looks like that is currently in the school. I've only got this one, which I use for my A-level work. But you will notice if you're looking, although they look slightly different, you will notice that a lot of the buttons are exactly the same. They are both by Casio and they're both in the same series, so they do have very similar characteristics. This one is just a bit more advanced because it's for the A-level, so you'll notice stuff like this, which you don't notice on that one. So you'll have like integration and everything else, but that's more A-level than it is for the GCSE. Unless you're thinking of further maths, you probably want to look at this as well. Your choice entirely. Okay, so what we are going to do is look at the sum of the functionality of the calculator. Okay, so some of you are still having issues. I know it's something that happens across quite a lot of the year groups anyway. So we're just going to spend a bit of time with your best friend in maths. This is your best friend. If you know how to use your calculator, it will be very easy to get stuff done. If you don't know how to use your calculator, you are going to find it quite difficult. And I know there's a lot of you that otherwise forget your calculators to lesson, you've lost your calculators, or you don't even have a calculator, and then you get used to using the calculator on your phone that you find it incredibly difficult to use this calculator. So this is one reason why you need to work on your own calculator and make sure you are used to it. Okay, so question. What is the answer to that? And what is the answer to that? Okay, if you need to pause before you type that into your calculator, that's perfectly fine. You can do so. But you will probably notice that you have two different answers. And for those people that understand why, that's perfectly fine. For those people that don't, your calculator is a tool. And as a tool, it uses BidMath. So when I'm looking at this, it looks at the indice before it looks at this negative over here. Because this negative is that S right there, whereas the indice is I. So it needs to prioritize the indice before it prioritizes that. So it's saying, well, I've got a negative and I've got a 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. That then becomes negative 9. Whereas with this one, I've got a set of brackets. So it prioritizes the brackets before the indice. So that is negative 3 times negative 3. Okay, it sounds relatively simple. It is relatively simple, but it is a very common mistake. So you need to be used to doing this. Okay, so what about this one? If you were asked to complete that, how would you do it? Okay, so I know quite a few people sometimes start off with the square root and then they press the fraction key. And when you do that, you will notice that the actual square root goes over all of it. So what you want to do is press the fraction key first and then press the square root, and then you get the 4.2 plus the 5.8 cubed, okay? And then at the bottom, just put the 8.3. Take away the 2.71. And then it will give you that answer, and then you're able to answer from there. Okay, so just make sure that this looks exactly the same as this question over here. A few people, what they do with this one is they'll just type it the way they think it should be, and they don't actually double check what's on the screen. I know it's a very easy mistake, but these kind of questions that just say use your calculator and write down all the figures on the calculator, very easy to grab a mark from that, right? Okay, so make sure you don't muck up on the easy questions. Those marks you should just be able to obtain and not worry about it. Okay, next one, it says, what is the square root of 89 in decimal form? So I've got 89. You will probably notice that your calculator goes into third form, which is the square root of 89. Okay, that's not your decimal form. So you need to go between surd and decimal. Some people like to say it's special and decimal because you do see like fractions and so on and so forth with them. So just use the SD button. That will get you into decimal format. What if the question asks you what is it in decimal form, then you can say, well, it's 9.43398. As I've always told you, I always put that ... in just to acknowledge to the person that's looking at my paper or question, just to say to them, that's me saying to them, I acknowledge there is more. I am including that there is more. And then after that, I would make sure I round accordingly and then just put in, oh, you can't read anymore outside that. So it's a two decimal places. And then I'm saying, I acknowledge that this number is much longer. That's the reason why I put ... in. But now I'm going to round it and have an approximation. Okay. And then in part 3, it says subtract your answer to be from 143.5. This is where a lot of you still make mistakes, okay? So quite a few people would take that answer, okay? But when they give you a question like this, they are not asking for this answer to be used. They are asking for the exact number because we're saying this is the answer. We've approximated it for the examiner. So when they're asking for the answer, they use this one. There is no point in typing this out because this number in itself is actually approximated because your calculator will carry it on for however long needs be. So even this number is approximated. So rather than using this number, otherwise you would store it into one of the memories. So a lot of calculators have a lot of memories now. So you've got the alpha button and you've got store and recall. So you can store it into those different memories, which is A, B, C, D, E, F, and then you've got X, Y, and M as well. So that alpha key is essential. It basically gives you access to the different letters that you have. But you also have this as a memory key, which is your answer button, okay? And that answer button is absolutely crucial when it comes to these types of questions, especially when you have a question that has, say, about 5 parts and you need to use the part from previous. This answer button is amazing, okay? So I would just put 143.5, take away the answer. And then it automatically gives me the next one. And then I'll do exactly the same as I did in part B, where I put 134.066, whatever. Okay, and then you've got 134.07 to 2 decimal places. Okay, so make sure you become friends with that answer button. Please do not use these unless it specifically states you to do so. But approximation always happens at the end. You wouldn't just randomly start approximating. Especially, you will notice some of the questions. If anyone did the trig puzzle where you had a stack of triangles, if you approximated at any point during that whole puzzle, you would have got the end answer wrong. So in order to avoid those kind of inaccuracies, you need to make sure you go for the exact answers, okay? Because although it may not seem much now because you're in maths lessons, if you do choose a mathematical field, these kind of things will build up, be it as small as, say, an eddy current within an actual transformer, or be it as big as you might miss the angle of a satellite reaching a planet in space, okay? So you need to ensure that you don't approximate until it comes to the end answer and use that answer button. It is absolutely crucial that you learn how to, otherwise you can use the memories if you need more than one, or just make sure you get used to that answer button right there. Okay, so the next one says modifying existing expressions. So if I have an expression where I can modify the answer, where you will notice I had this fraction, do I really want to type out that fraction time and again? I don't really want to. So rather than typing it out again, all I have to do is then go back into this one. So if you just press, sorry, I'm lifting it up because I can't see it. Okay. But if you use the up and down arrows, it goes between all the equations that you've done in the past. I don't know why I'm doing hand signals out here where you guys can't see it. But if you use the up and down buttons, it goes between it goes between the different calculations you may have done. So you can see all the previous ones, but I'm already in it. That's why it's not liking it. Okay, but if you move the arrows around, once you're in there, if you press the left, if you press the left button, it will go into the equation, and then you can just press delete 2. You will notice I've actually changed the power of 3 into the power of 2, and then I can press equals, and it just gives me a brand new answer. Okay, so using that is quite good because it allows you to go in between different calculations that you may have done. Obviously, if you keep clearing it, you will clear it completely, especially if you turn the calculator off. It will clear the memory. So it only has the memories within that particular session. Okay. Okay, so another button that you guys really need to look at is the square root button. So a lot of you will see the square root button, and if I put 81, it will come out with 9, right? Okay, so that square root button, you need to remember that the square root button is literally called a square root because it's the square root, okay? And then you get cube root. So this is usually seen as this. So anytime you usually see this, that means it's a square root. Okay. And then any numbers higher than that, you will see a 3, you will see a 4. So if I have like a 4 there, then you know that equals, oh, sorry, it's not the square root, it's cube root. No, it's to the root 4. Okay, so I know if I type that into a calculator, I will get a 2 because it's to the root of 4, not to the square root, okay? So a lot of you should have this one. Depending on the calculator will depend on how much detail you have. So there's this one, which is your square root. So always remember that it is automatically a 2 in there. Or alternatively, you should have cube root. So I can do like cube root 2, cube root 3, and then it'll give me 2. And then some of you might have this, which is that one. So it's the shift button that goes on from the power, and then I can put in whatever number I want. So if I put 5 and then 32, so if I do 32 to root 5, then it should be 2. Okay, or I don't know, let's just do a random one. 6 and then 7 to 9 be 3. Okay, so you should be aware of the different keys. I would really encourage you to whatever your calculator may be. So if you don't have a Casio, I know I used to read the books, but obviously a lot of people are on YouTube nowadays, and a lot of people have tutorials. So find out what your calculator is and find different tutorials on your calculator. There will be a lot of stuff that you can see on your calculator if you want to just learn basic stuff, which is like memories and using squares, square roots, the trig functions, which you guys should already know. You've got like, say, mixed numbers to improper fractions. So say if I did 5 divided by 2, you see 5 divided by 2, and then I could like shift it between mixed numbers and improper fractions. That's kind of basic stuff, or you could do like random number generators and everything else. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with your calculator. There's even a percentage key, so you could work out percentages without actually having to do any hard work. But if you want to know more about your calculator, you can always look it up. We've only just done a very basic lesson, but I'd really encourage you to look up what kind of work you can do with your calculator. These amazing tools will really help you with your maths and just help you save time at the end of the day, because the less time you spend working out stuff that might be unnecessary because your calculator can do it for you will mean the more time you have to actually spend on the problem, to find out what the problem means, how you're going to solve it, whether that answer is something that is correct or not. Okay, so it actually allows you that time to spend on questions that really need your time and attention. Okay, so you don't have to rush through it. But anywho, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have these questions for you. So there are a bunch of questions in 1 and 2, and then there's a little bit over here if you want to try that functionality of a table out. The table function is quite a nice function to use if you just have a function and you just want to find out a bunch of results without having to work it out. So if I had to do a table of values for plotting a graph, the table function would really help me just find out a list of coordinates. So I could very easily just write down the coordinates and then I could just draw the graph. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. But it is just a matter of experimenting. But I will post these questions. Can you just make sure you try them? And then take a picture of your results. And then just pop them onto the classroom. Okay? So anyway, have a great day. Get some vitamin D. Toodles.